Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to White Sands Missile Range. How we doing? Thank you for being here today. What a great opportunity we have to work here at White Sands Missile Range. And I really enjoy these opportunities because this is an opportunity to invest in us. This is team building. This is an opportunity for us. What I invite you to do is take what you learn here today and apply that not only to what you're doing, but share that with the people that you know and work with. We are blessed today to have an opportunity to have Clifton Tanabe here, a gentleman who has accomplished quite a bit in the world of education. For me, I think education is the one thing that improves our lives and our communities. It is the one magic ingredient for each of us. And so pleased to introduce a gentleman who's come here not only with a strong educational background, but in applying that in both his degrees from the University of Wisconsin in education and in law. So a beautiful mix of understanding processes and regimen and applying that on how we make the lives of individuals better. So please join me in welcoming from the University of Texas at El Paso, Clifton Tanabe.
Thank you, Chief. Well, first, let me just say again, Clifton Tanabe. I'm the dean, the current dean of the College of Education at the University of Texas at El Paso. This is my fifth year, starting my fifth year in the role. So also fifth year in the region. I think what I want to start by saying is it's an intimidating group to present to. I'll just start there. I just came back from vacation, and so we pulled this together. I think there was a leadership change in who I was communicating with months ago to come out to White Sands. So I'm going to try my best, and I'm mostly going to talk a little bit about some of the work that we've been doing in education around transformation of the programs we do for teacher preparation. I'll talk a little bit about some of the strategic ways in which we try to involve our community stakeholders. The real kind of trick to doing scaled work in preparation is not to do it in a silo at the university. I mean, you got to be in the school districts. You have to be with folks who are actually doing it in the field, and you have to understand how to pull those relationships together, which are, these people don't report to me. So it's a challenge of leadership, but it's also a challenge of mutual mission and communication and those kinds of things. And we can talk about my own work at the University of Hawaii as well. I didn't put that in the talk. I served in several roles. One of them was as chief of staff, and so that was an unusual role for somebody who was a faculty member. I mean, I was in a department, I was teaching and doing research, and the chancellor had heard about some of the work that I've done in previous life and asked me if I would consider the role of serving as the chief of staff, and I jumped at that opportunity, not knowing at all how to do it. I was just saying earlier to somebody else here that my first cabinet meeting, I went home and I told my wife that I was just shaking my head, and she said, how'd it go? I said, man, you will not believe how decisions are made at this university. So it was an auspicious start, but it was an incredible learning experience, and all of that's fair game. I also directed a large initiative following that. There were 3 leadership transitions while I was in that role for 4 years, and the last president asked me to try to run a system-wide, but first starting with an institution-wide effort to try to make an impact on enrollment and some other things. So we could talk about that as well. That was also different work than chief. I think I also want to make sure that I tell you how excited I am to be here, how I'm hoping to learn a little bit about your mission and about the work you do here at the White Sands Missile Range. It's new to me. I mean, of course, I read about your work and heard about what you do, but it's so much bigger than I think most people in El Paso understand. And so that's part of the pleasure and the honor for me to spend some time with you here today. Having said that, I think this is a person named Deborah Clark who had, I think, initially reached out to UTEP. And the first person, I think the person that she was certainly interested in having come and talk to you was President Heather Wilson, which painfully aware that several steps down from Dr. Wilson to have me here. It's kind of like expecting I don't know, like a high-powered sports car, and you got a VW Bug, but I'll try my best to share some of my learning, and hopefully I know this is an opportunity for you to have conversations across the aisles as well, and so happy to step back or to participate in an overarching discussion. I'd like to share a little bit about some of the transformation work we've embarked on at UTEP, and in particular in the College of Education, especially focused on teacher preparation. If you think of colleges at universities, they're broken down into disciplines. There's College of Engineering, there's College of Science, College of Liberal Arts. I lead the College of Education. And when you think of the College of Education, I think most people think about teachers, right? So it's a large professional preparation program. That's our largest program by far. And we do both undergraduate teacher certification and graduate teacher certification. We do a one-year master's degree with full certification right now. So if you're looking for teacher certification somewhere down the line, come and see us. And we'll get you in and out in a year, and you'll have a master's degree and be fully certified to teach in any field you desire. Some of that work, all of that, there was work being done in transformation at the college before I arrived 5 years ago. But it was, I'll say it was nascent and a bit ad hoc. And the college itself had a rotating door of leaders. So I stepped into an organization that was skeptical of change and skeptical of leadership. And I was told at least 3 or 4 times, I did full one-on-one interviews when I got in to my role with every staff member and faculty member in the building. And I was told at least in 4 of those one-on-ones that I was the wrong person for the job. I wasn't from the region, I didn't understand the issues, and I was a nice guy, but this was a tough job. And so I nodded and said, okay, well, I'm gonna try my best, and if I'm the wrong person, that'll probably, I'll be the first one to admit it and step aside. But I'd also like to articulate why we pursued the transformation work we did in the college and why we were doing it in the way we were doing it. As you're aware, UTEP is the largest 4-year institution in El Paso. There's a large community college, of course, that the university partners up very closely with. And that creates a certain context and responsibility. From an educational standpoint, UTEP and El Paso are somewhat unique. I used to call it a closed education loop. I refer to it now more as a unique educational ecosystem. What I mean by that is the college that I lead and the program in preparation that I oversee is responsible right now for a little over 70% of the current teacher workforce in El Paso. And those teachers care for, educate, and love about 80% of the students that eventually make up the UTEP student body. It's a closed loop. And so that creates, I kind of made a lot of that when I first got here internally to my own staff and faculty, but also internally to the university and to the leadership at the university level and to our community members, just trying to grasp, understand, and articulate what that meant for the overarching pipeline or the responsibility that my small little world of preparing teachers had to do in response. And the reality is that it presents an incredible opportunity. That was an opportunity I recognized before assuming the role, and that opportunity is one of great impact, 70% of the current teacher workforce. But it also presents what I'll call a responsibility or even a risk. And that risk is that if the UTEP College of Education does not do its work at the highest levels possible, it can be part of the problem. It can be part of the reason why we're not growing and developing in a region because of that level of impact. And so, I started to talk a lot about that internally, and you can imagine, and then externally, and you can imagine team members in the College of Education going, "What is this guy doing? Stop talking that way. You're putting us in the spotlight." But it's not to try to kind of over-grandize that reality. It's just to accept the reality and understand it. And if you can understand it, and you realize that that's the case, a lot of things start to happen. One is it's very difficult to point fingers in the industry that I'm in. I can, folks at the university talk about how poorly prepared biology students are in their college. I say, well, that's a problem, and probably the person you ought to point to is me, because my program prepared the biology teachers that taught the students. So we're in this together, and that was effectively the message. And with enough of that and enough conversation about how I thought that if that were the case, we should own that responsibility, try to analyze it effectively, and discover what role, what contribution we might make in our tiny corner of the community. So opportunity and responsibility. The state and national context for teaching is, I'll say, challenging. If I were in a less formal context, I might use different words, but challenging is a good one. The point is that as a country, we are now, and we have been for a while, facing a teacher shortage. You've seen the stories, I think, throughout the pandemic and how difficult that profession was, the school board meetings that were televised, and just the overarching consternation around public education, around education in general. And of course, teachers are at the center of all of that. There are probably a number of fundamental reasons for that shortage and for the overarching challenges that education and educators are facing. And there are probably folks in this room who are more as attuned or more familiar with those challenges and those reasons. I'll suffice it to say that there are complexities associated with that, and that it's both a local and a national problem. The bottom line for us at UTEP, and the UTEP College of Education, I believe, was to understand the overarching context, to understand the role that we played in our region, to understand the capacities and the resources that we had, the limitations and the strengths that we possessed, and to own our role, not to point fingers, to genuinely try to grasp what we could do and should do, given the stewardship of resources that we were overseeing. And so, I could go into a whole litany of kind of steps that I took coming into a new organization to try to translate that into action. We can talk about that later. I don't think it's probably more for a discussion, but everything from, maximizing that 3-month window, maybe 5 months if you're lucky, in making changes on my leadership team, to bringing in a series of external evaluators. So folks who are in the profession, in the industry, I had to cobble together some resources to bring them in, but and doing it early so that you're setting a tone through what you're trying to frame as an objective look at our strengths and our weaknesses. Those are always difficult things to do, obviously, in any organization. They were difficult for me. I remember the first meeting following the first evaluator that we brought in, did a 2-week intensive deep dive, plus the prep before and after, but on campus for 2 weeks. And just, every single program, interviewing every single person. About a week in, I ran into a small group in the hallway. These were folks who were at kind of mid-level leadership level, talking quietly, and one of them had tears in her eyes. And I was like, "Whoa, what's going on here?" It's like, "This evaluation is going to be terrible." I was like, "It's a look at what we're doing, and we want to get a sense of where we're at. We want to get a sense, most importantly, of where we might be able to be." And so that first meeting happened. Jokingly, the evaluators met with me ahead of time and said, "Listen, we're going to give you some of the upfront results right now. And when we hold the overarching meeting with the entire faculty, we're going to be by the door and we're going to keep the car running. So I'm going to drop it, then run. And I said, okay, gotcha. At that meeting, we laid out the results, and they were rough. I mean, this was a group of folks who were very proud of the work that they had done over many, many years, and who had felt an ownership and a sense of responsibility for the students that they taught over many years, and they were being told that things weren't as great as they thought they were. Silence after that, and the first person who spoke was a respected faculty member who stood up and said, "Listen, now we know. I say let's roll up our sleeves and get to work." That was powerful. For me, that was the moment that I knew I could make some things happen. So this idea of responsibility, mutual mission, full understanding of the context, right? Both at a larger and at a smaller level, and then owning it and carefully trying to iterate your work forward. In trying to describe a little bit of those transitions, I thought I might focus in on the work that we did around teacher preparation. This has been kind of a 3-year plus intensive dive into changing a program that needed help and updating. And after that, I think I might end with an ask of all of you, but we'll get to that later. The transformation work we embarked on in El Paso and at UTEP over the past 4 years has allowed us to grow our teacher preparation program and strengthen the educator talent pipeline for our region, even in the face of the COVID-19 pandemic. The core of our work was on redesigning our program around a year-long teacher residency aimed at preparing the highest quality teachers who are ready to take on their first teaching jobs. And the accelerator for implementing and scaling this work is a region-wide shared ownership model we put into practice with our school districts, partners, and other community-based stakeholders. We'll talk a little bit more about that later, that work in detail later. At UTEP, our teacher candidates spend a full year immersed in a rigorous on-site coaching structure, and we work hand in hand with our district partners to make all of this happen. You see, the unvarnished truth is that teaching is hard. And from my view, we do aspiring teachers no favors by sugarcoating this reality. Instead, at UTEP, we believe in letting students know that the program that we offer is rigorous, and it is designed to fully prepare them for the realities of the profession. Why do we deliver such a tough message? Because an ill-prepared third-grade teacher taking on their first job, if they last the year, will have the next year to do it again. And then they may get the hang of it. But the third graders in their first classroom only get to do third grade once. UTEP's year-long teacher residency allows our candidates to enter their first year teaching jobs almost as if they're second-year teachers. Now, because teaching is a performance-based profession, you really don't learn how to do it in a classroom building on a university campus. UTEP teacher residents are in schools throughout the week and mentor teachers employed by the district and full-time UTEP faculty members who are on site 5 days a week serve as in-field instructional coaches for our residents. We run our residents through POP cycles, that is pre-observation, observation, and post-observation cycles all year long. And our coaches use proven techniques such as performance video. We have our students review film, time-stamped, exact plays, basically. And we do our teaching model through that structure as well. As you might know, you might not know this, but the state, we're certified by the state, so all of our certification runs through TEA. We have to meet their accountability standards, and one of the changes that the state made recently was to shift to a more portfolio-based accountability structure. We made that transition 3 years ago. We learned from that process and incorporated some key aspects to that. including our just-in-time learning feedback structure. And then this past legislative session, or this past SBEC session, the Board of Education then pulled that structure. They pulled at TPA that accountability model and denied it from moving forward. But we kept ours running. So we have a heightened version of a portfolio and performance-based assessment model that since then the state has asked for, in multiple cases, asked for versions of our summaries and versions of our model to be presented so that it might be incorporated into their conversation about what to do next. Ultimately, it's just an overarching effort to try to align assessment, to align performance, and to align evaluation so that we know step by step whether what we're doing with our students, with our residents, is working and whether they're improving, developing throughout that residency and throughout the entire four-year pathway. And we use what's called T-tests to evaluate our residents in training. That's the exact same teacher evaluation structure the state uses for full-time working teachers. So we know in the year before they get their jobs how they're going to score on their full regular evaluation once they become teachers. We've been able to scale our residency over time, starting with a pilot of 19 students in 2019 and growing to where we'll have 175 teacher residents in 7 school districts across 32 campuses this year. As district leaders began to notice the quality of the candidates we were producing, demand for hiring them went up. This led to more partnerships and growth for our program, and then the pandemic hit. Like everyone else, we were prepared for a setback in enrollment, and our 2021 enrollment went flat. Then at the close of registration this spring, the College of Education's 2022 enrollment was up 2.4%. While not massive, it gave us a glimpse into the program resilience created by the changes we had put into place. What I want to convey above all else is that from my experience, high quality teacher preparation grounded on immersive field-based training is the cornerstone of a resilient, growth-oriented educator talent pipeline. And low quality preparation is the opposite. Now, my guess is at this point, you might be wondering what we have to offer in terms of more immediate solutions to teacher shortages. As I mentioned earlier, part of our transformation work included redesigning our alternative certification program to include the same year-long coaching structure offered in our undergraduate pathway. Students in our new alternative certification program can both earn certification and a full master's degree in 1 year. Admittedly, this program is hard, it's rigorous and intensive, and maybe not for everyone. But it's growing. We've been impressed with the quality of students who are in it, several of those from military backgrounds. The point is that this is an accelerated reskilling and upskilling opportunity that has put new teachers in classrooms this fall. And most importantly, in our model, they receive the innovative and intensive coaching required to make them highly successful. I would add this last thought. There are 2 key costs to our residency program. The first is a livable internship stipend. For many students in our region, working is non-negotiable. They are paying bills, taking care of family members, feeding children. So 3 years ago, when it looked like we might pull off a year-long residency, I woke up one night in a cold sweat, worrying that we could be building a gold standard prep program that none of our students would be able to do. It seemed impossible for them to work the graveyard shift and do the intensive full-time work required of the residency experience. So the next morning, I started reaching out, really cold calling, just flying by the seat of my pants, reaching out to local foundations and businesses and other leaders, asking them to consider funding stipends for a program that we were going to launch in the fall. Soon, 3 local organizations pulled together enough funds to launch our pilot with a stipend for each student. I remember one important conversation that I had in that process was with a leader of an engineering firm, local engineering firm. And while we were talking about it, he said to me, I didn't say to him, he said, yeah, we take interns in our firm and we'd always pay them. We wouldn't think not to pay them. Probably should be the same for teachers, shouldn't it? I was like, that's exactly what I'm saying, let's do this. We've also tried to find a way to make this process sustainable. Foundation funding, as you're well aware, is not sustainable. But that initial seed funding made all the difference. The next year, we started working with 2 districts on what we call strategic staffing approaches that allow them, the district, to pay for the stipends for our students. For example, we've designed in the flexibility to allow districts to assign UTEP teacher residents substitute teaching responsibilities. It's not as ad hoc as you might think. In general, substitute teaching needs flare up on Fridays. I don't know why people get sick on Fridays, but that's the case. So we structure our substitute and our internship immersive experiences so that Fridays are a little lighter, so that if those opportunities exist, the district can use one of our residents to cover those costs and to cover a classroom. This is a person who's on campus. This is a person who's already familiar with the students. This is a person who's highly motivated to teach, right? And they're not there for the $200 or the $400, whatever it is. So it's a win-win. And for our students, at first, our staff was, our faculty were a little worried about cutting in to the residency training cycle. Some of the best training you can do is drop a young teacher into a classroom of students that they don't work with every day. I mean, it's called classroom management, and it's real, and that's a good way to learn it. So we found it to be a win-win. In any case, it also kind of frames it up in a nice way for our state partners and for our district partners in a shortage context. That model effectively creates a farm team of substitute teachers who are ready to work. This year, with the help of new state funding, we have begun working with 5 more districts on strategic approaches. Now, the state funding will end next year. And after that, a few of our district partners, particularly our smaller district partners, may not be able to cover the costs for residency stipends. Right now, our residents get paid $20,000 a year to do that experience. Some might be able to still do it, but others may not. And when that happens, I'll probably wake up in a cold sweat again one night. But I think we're working on some ways to try to navigate that closing of a funding cycle. We know it's there. We had 2 years to already work on it. So we'll see what happens, but I think we'll keep this program going for sure. The second key cost to our residency program is hiring and training the field-based faculty who serve as on-site instructional coaches and experts. These educational champions anchor our program and ensure its quality. We will fully implement our program in 2 years, when every student in our preparation pathway will participate in our year-long residency model. This will sound a bit overly dramatic, but right now, not in 5 years, but today, we have a program that will put 175 newly certified teachers who have gone through the highest level of preparation in schools this year. In 5 years, that number will grow to nearly 900, almost 10% of El Paso's entire teacher workforce. And that's assuming at our current rate. If we have designed and calibrated our work properly, that outcome has to be transformational for children and families in El Paso and for the future of our region. And this work takes support and investment, and all investment comes with risk. For us, in this case, we felt the real risk was in not making the effort, not being laser focused on creating the best program possible, not owning that responsibility, not working to pull together leaders and stakeholders committed to regional development around this critical mission and outcome. But the risk moving forward for us will be in being undercapitalized, unrecognized, and unable to sustain and grow this model to serve our entire region at scale. Having described our work, I mentioned at the beginning of my comments that I might have an ask. At this point, you might imagine my ask. It's a hope. It's a hope that you will continue to learn a bit more about the work and the dreams that we are pursuing at UTEP, especially in preparation for teachers, and about our dream of contributing to developing and sustaining the absolute best teacher workforce in the country, right here in our backyard. Great teachers lead to great schools. Great schools are the foundation for a great community and a great future. I was going to show you this really cool video that we have, but I think the protocols won't allow it. It's a YouTube video. It is of our first inaugural match day event. You can find it yourself. It's easy to find.
I am here today at our UTEP Teacher Residency Match Ceremony. This is an event where our new teacher residents who will be joining us in the fall are being matched with the school districts in which they'll be working with.
So much of our work is about honoring and elevating the work of teachers.
Teacher retention and recruitment is critical. We know with COVID and the Great Resignation that a lot of people are seeking other opportunities. So this is a way for UTEP and the local districts to partner together to make sure that we create a pipeline.
So the purpose of Match Day is so that we can match our new residents with the districts that they're going to be working with.
I'm super excited. I feel like I can't stop smiling. I'm excited for my friends here with me today, being able to open and experience this. It's a very important moment for us.
My name is Clifton Tanabe. I'm the Dean of the College of Education at UTEP, and this is our Match Day event, our first. We're super excited about it.
This is the first time we're having this meet and greet celebration, so I'm excited to see what's in store.
Our residents will check in. They'll receive a sealed envelope that contains their match for the upcoming year, the campus where they'll be placed for their residency.
I'm very excited, but I'm also very anxious. When I open it, I have no idea what to expect. My district, my school, my teacher, basically my entire future for 1 year in a little envelope.
Let us count. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Open your envelopes. In your envelope, you will find a key to unlock your future as a professional, your future as an educator, your future as a role model who will impact the lives of countless children in El Paso.
When I opened it, I was able to see that I got the school district that I initially wanted. I got Socorro Independent School District, and I got the school Purple Heart.
And I opened the envelope and I saw Sunridge SISD, and it was very unexpected for me. I am very excited and very happy with the decision.
This is an opportunity to truly honor and recognize the extremely hard work that teachers do day in and day out to care for, love, and teach pre-K 12 students in our region.
Well, I do have one, Bill. First off, thank you so much for taking the time to come out here and speak with us. Change is difficult, and it sounds like you had an uphill battle from day one. Especially when you're doing your initial interviews and people are saying you had the right one.
Yeah.
But can you talk a little bit about what was the biggest impediment to change that you experienced, and then how you kind of attack those impediments to get the team, focus on the team?
Yeah, I'll just say a little bit about UTEP, and then I can talk about the previous role. When I was interviewing for the job there was a lot of talk about morale. So there's a low morale. People are not happy. It's we need to do something about morale. And I started with the leadership team, just kind of bluntly talking about that issue. And I said, listen, if you ask me from a instinctual standpoint, I can't incentivize anybody out of low morale. I can't buy it. I can't buy you out of it. I can't kind of pay you to increase your morale. I guess we could recognize accomplishments that might help, but you really got to start from strengths when you do that, right? That's identifying strengths. You're not going to dig yourself out of a morale hole. The one thing I say we do is find problems, identify problems, fix the problems to the extent that we can, then find another one. Identify it, make sure we understand it, and fix it, and then another one. And if we do enough of that as a leadership team, people are going to be able to do their work a little bit better. They'll find support when they need it. They'll find that the bureaucracies or the challenges or the processes that they kept running up against start to disappear a bit or start to reduce. And that's going to raise their feeling that they're able to do their jobs. And if people feel like they can do their jobs, I think we'll make an impact on morale. But that's the only way. It's just by doing our jobs better. And so, to the credit of the team, and that group I did change out several of those initial folks, but to the credit of the team that we have, that is what we did. And I think if you went around the college right now, it's not perfect. People say that Tanabe guy is an idiot, some of them, but in general, I think you'll find that people feel like we're in a different place, like we're making the kinds of transitions that we dreamed about making years before I got here, and making the kind of impact that we hoped. So, yeah, I mean, that's a huge hurdle. The other hurdle is just exactly the thing that you said earlier. It's you're in a title, but you don't earn leadership by your title. Right? You don't earn leadership because you're hired. It's based really. I mean, I don't know if you guys are. I'm talking to a group of freaking leaders. I mean, I'm a tiny little small dude, but I try to do it through trust. I try to do it through I try to be honest. I try to talk about our mission over and over. I try to connect it to the everyday things that we do day in and day out. And I try to talk about excellence in that regard. Listen, this is our mission. It's big. If you do your part, I'm going to do my part. I'm going to back this to the hilt, and I'll back it in any ways that are uncomfortable. If I have to make waves above me, I'll make sure we do that. As long as it's for the right reasons and it's the right decision. But we're not going to get anywhere if we don't trust each other on that. And so, you do it, I'm going to do it, and bit by bit. So I mean, I know I'm just talking sideways here. Anyway, you guys should talk. I think this is you just teach me. Yes, sir.
I thought it was interesting. You said that when you're at the University of Hawaii, you had been in the faculty that moved to chief of staff. I was wondering what. Sounds like you had a steep learning curve going into there. I was wondering what were some of the few lessons that you learned from there that you would pass on to the successor that took over for you, or somebody that would be in that kind of situation. Yeah,
that was such an incredible time for training and development for me in many ways. I think I've somehow identified because the chancellor at that time had heard about me from one of the other vice presidents and knew that I was interested in opportunities. And so he was losing his chief of staff. I was in a fellowship program at that time, and I think he put two and two together. He could get 6 months from me for free because I would fellowship into that role. And so he said, I want you to come and do this, but you're not going to just observe, you're going to be chief of staff. And so I said, okay. I came up from faculty into that role, and that is there are great aspects about that led to some successes, and aspects about that led to some challenges. Usually, that person is somebody who's legislatively connected or who has a strong legal background. I have a law degree, but I'm not a lawyer. I mean, let's be honest, I'm a teacher, or somebody who has significant community-based networks and connections. I wasn't that person. I understood our business. I understood faculty life. I had lots of things to say about changes that we needed, but changing wasn't really my role. So I had to learn all of that really quickly. I mean, the basic gatekeeping responsibilities are not that hard to figure out. What's hard to figure out is how to carry out a decision that the chancellor, the president, wants to make, and that has to do with a vice president. What's hard was firing people. I hated that part of my job. I mean, kind of like this, gotta let this person go, Cliff, go and talk to him. It was like, huh. So, those were things that were just on the job. I'll tell you the overarching lesson, which was so powerful for me, was, things weren't gonna happen based on some authority structure that it came with, even if it was the president's, even if it was coming from the president. The only way a decision was going to work in the right way or some collaboration was going to happen, I learned quickly, because starting out, I said, well, the president said you got to do this. Fuck you, was the kind of response I got half the time. I said, well, what do you mean? And so it was by trying to find that ground between these two people and to talk really, really clearly about why they might want to do this. Both sides. Here's the mutual benefit. Here's the reason why this works. Here's how we can, if this isn't the right way to do this outcome, what is the right way? Tell me, I'll craft it, I'll take it back to the president. Give me the solution. So it's that kind of stuff, cutting my teeth on that kind of work, being really the lackey with zero respect and zero authority, and being able to get making some of those things happen. That was beyond valuable for me, and I use those skills now every single day.
I have a question for you. Bachelor's degree, master's degree, a couple of doctorate degrees, lots of opportunities. You had to pick education for some reason because you could do almost anything. So tell me, if you would, here's the core question.
Yeah.
What is your decision-making process?
That's such a good question. I thought it was personal. I grew up in Hawaii. I was born in the Midwest, but I was raised in Hawaii. And Hawaii has a very unique educational framework. It has a highly sophisticated and elite private school system. Barack Obama went to Punahou, which is probably one of the top private schools in the country. And it has a once strong and now failing public education system. And my mother was 1,000% committed to public education. She was gonna put her money where her mouth is, and so she put both me and my brother in public. All of my cousins went to private schools. They all, my dad was a professor at the university, so they all sent their kids to private schools. She was going to send us to public schools, and she rode our tails every single day. You're going, and you are going to succeed, damn it! And so that was part of a conversation and a culture around our family. Education was this really, really important thing for her. And I just remember talking about that dynamic as, like a third grader or an eighth grader around our dinner table. It had to have launched in there somewhere. I was actually I thought I was going to head toward the ministry when I was a young man. But, I ended up falling in love with education. I had a triple major when I was in my undergraduate degree, so I was lost. I really came to education as a master's degree student. Good professor. I knew I wanted to do something, that had an impact. And, I think it was just a couple of good mentors who said, here's a place, get started, figure out what you're going to know. And so I did. But the law degree was different. I was already a professor. I was at the University of Wisconsin La Crosse, kind of a comprehensive 11,000 student campus. Managed to get 2 large grants to work on some kind of transition from teachers' aides into full teaching certification pathways. There we had a Hmong community, a significant Hmong community. La Crosse was a transitioning rural to urban community. And one of the first things I remember seeing when I got to town was a table set up by the La Crosse Police Department. It was titled Asian Violence in the Coulee region. I was like, Asian violence? Oh, I'm Asian. First, where are the Asian people? Because I haven't seen any. 2, what is this? What is this interesting thing? And so it turned out to be young Hmong men in the region who were having a tough time. And so we started to put together a program to do something about that. And that program ran into so many, it was it was a wonderful experience, but I learned quickly that this word policy, and rules, And so when I went to go in, I said, we got to get your student, all these aides need to come over here. And they're like, we'd love to do that, Dr. Tanabe, but our policies don't allow us to let these students go or these people. And so I started thinking, what is this? What's this whole world? And somebody just said, why don't you think about law school? I took a 3-year leave from my academic post, which happened because we had run down some large grants, and so they let me go on the promise that I return, which I did. Just piece by piece, right? No plan. It just happens like that. Yeah. Anyway. Oh.
Online. What leadership roles would you consider vital to complete critical missions for supervisors?
Roles as in a team, like a team of folks with different roles, or leading up to being able to do that.
I'm not sure, so it was just on the Q&A, that's how it was asked.
It seems he's referring more to leadership skills.
Yeah. Skills I'll talk about in a second. From again, you've just heard kind of how I landed into the opportunities that I had. Again, I don't know, this is probably not politically correct, but the joke around my family is I'm the Asian Forrest Gump. I work hard. I'm trying hard, but I find myself in the right place at the right time, and then I leverage that. I think for, when it comes to skills, the things that I try to make the most of, one, communication is obviously central. And it's not just being able to articulate what you want done. It's being able to articulate why you're doing what you're trying to do. And that's in individual meetings with personnel, that's across teams, that's with stakeholders, and especially with other community leaders and community organizations when you're trying to do the work that we're trying to do. So communication across the board. I use the word integrity. That's a little, I know that's a little highfalutin, but just basically, if you say you're going to do something, do it. And I'll give you an example. As I said, we started with foundation funding to fund our residencies for that first year. And we actually went into the second year with foundation funding. One of the school districts, one of their leaders, to go unnamed, and the foundation leads, presidents, didn't like each other. And so we already had a resident model we were going to deploy in that school district. We had the big meeting, and in the meeting, we had foundation folks, the superintendent, the whole thing, Zoom at this time because we were in the pandemic. We presented some of that. He stopped it all and said, "Who are these people?" Pointing to folks from the foundation, which he already knew were there, and said, "Why are you here?" And they said something, "We're here, we're going to support this program." And he cut them off and said, no, we're not doing this with you. End of program, right? End of funding. Can't put students in the residency if you can't fund them. So that was rough. They were pissed. Our funders were pissed. I met with them. I said, "Listen," they said, you got to back out of that. And I said, can't back out of that. This is a large school district. This is one that we're already committed to. It's part of our region. There's people we're going to serve, and so can't do it. And they said, "Well, then we might not be able to do this anymore." And I said, "Well, I understand that. I hope that's not the outcome, but I understand the challenge." I went to the superintendent and said, "Listen, you're not getting funded. It's done. You kibosh that deal, but we're still going to do this. We'll scrabble together any way we can to commit to putting residents in the district." And he said, "Cliff, don't worry about it. I'll fund them." And that was weird because we hadn't done district funding up until that point. It was always going to be, well, we were funding, we were talking about it, but it was all, the foundations were chipping in this money. And that almost like turned a piece of the puzzle. And I said, "Really?" It's like, "Yeah, we'll figure this out." Met with him, true to his word, we figured it out. He funded them. Foundation, not true to their word, but I went and said, "Listen, this is what we do. I can't abandon any of these folks. We abandon one, the whole thing falls apart. Nobody's going to trust this work." And so they said, "Okay, we'll hang in there, but we're never giving that guy money." I said, "Good, fine. Let's focus on the other folks you like." So commitment, I think, don't back out, build that trust. It's probably another thing that I've relied on a lot. Working hard.
Sir, do you think, so I'm married to a teacher. She's
Yes, sir.
homeschooling because of the pandemic, and we've got kids that we're trying to get through English, and
Yes, sir.
obviously the pandemic was not ideal, the K through 3-4 breaks that are just learning to read, right? So she's a master teacher, she's got K-12, the whole thing. Do you see this as a future? Because one of the things we were joking about the other night is that it sucks that if somebody wants to become a teacher, they have to quit their job, work for free, but a substitute is working, getting paid $200 or $300 a day or whatever, $80 a day, whatever it is, to get the experience that somebody else is paying for. Do you think this is back to the future of what all of this will become, or do you think this is your one-off in the world?
Yeah, I think that is central to the conversation around learning right now. We know, I think it's pretty well accepted now that the outcomes that we were hoping for through the online transition during the pandemic did not happen. There is measured learning loss. So something about that didn't work. It could just be it was too fast, too much scale. We also know that there are online delivery methods and experiences that work. And so the question is, what is the balance? What's kind of what's the way to do this in a way that maximizes the technology and the learning? At UTEP, President Wilson has really focused on trying to transition us back to a face-to-face experience. I think part of that is brand. There are massive higher ed online delivery organizations out there. We're not one of them, so our competitive advantage is probably in a face-to-face experience. But the other is the real data around the impact on learning loss that's had both at the K-12 and the higher ed levels. I don't know. I mean, you know all the strengths. I mean, we talked before the pandemic. If I tried to get my faculty to transition to online, I could get 5% of folks, and we're right around there. We're right about 5 to 8%. And everybody, and it's not just, I'll try it later. Everybody else was staunchly against it. I'll never do that. That's terrible. When the pandemic hit, everybody was on. I can't get them back. I can't get them offline right now because, it's great. They're at home. They're teaching. And so, we're doing all that. We're setting all these policies up and I'm having to scold people. But I don't know. I mean, there is huge advantages to those technologies. We're trying to build a learning tech department in the College of Ed because that's the future of education. The stuff that's happening around AR and VR in learning. I just saw this amazing partnership that ASU and Michael Crow have put up with just this incredible Hollywood talent, narrators. The core concept was if you are able to produce a high quality AR or a VR experience, you can drive the learning through narrative, through an experience that has components of learning, but also emotion connection. And if you put those two together, that's kind of the golden ticket, right? That's where learning sticks. That's where you're actually deploying it and actually, putting it into action. It's connecting to who you are. And I believe that stuff is powerful. I mean, I haven't had a chance to go through their, they have this amazing demo, but it sounds right to me. And so, I don't know, we're trying to figure that out. The other thing it does is data. You do learning that way. You get tons and tons of data. And the more data you get, the more you start to try to figure out, what's actually happening in the learning process. We're getting better at it, but we're far from understanding what learning is, fundamentally. We know what it looks like, and we know how certain teachers do it better than others, but we don't actually know what's happening there in here. Anyway, I'm not sure I answered your question, but.
Yes, sir. Last year, I volunteered as substitute in the Las Cruces Public School District, but we didn't have anything this fancy. I mean, it was just a 2-week, a bunch of courses you had to take, and then you got a teaching license to substitute. Okay. I substituted out here at the elementary school 6-7 times. I did it on my RDO on Fridays because, again, teachers like to call out on Fridays. So it was beneficial, but it was only $150. I don't know. Maybe
just trying to make sure I didn't keep any district out of their money cycle.
Mentioned earlier, but one thing I did notice, everybody wants to, like Seth brought up about the virtual learning.
Yeah.
The problem is you can't leave your kids at home if you've got to go to work as well.
That's right.
So if you're working, but the school is virtual, what do you do with the children? Yep. That's the other problem. So if the workforce is at work, then the kids need to be at school.
Yep.
And I noticed that when you're in there, you're talking to the kids. As an IG here on the installation, I get to talk to a lot of people. So when you start dealing with their kids, you see a lot of those same people again, but in the classroom.
Yep.
It's a little small.
Yep.
But some of the attitudes you got to the parents. The kids got behind, very far behind, a year almost behind, or more, due to that lack of having a teacher in front of them teaching properly. And I don't know if we still should progress toward this virtual learning model when the workforce is back to work. I don't see it.
Yeah, totally with you. I mean, it's also kind of it's in some ways it's a socioeconomic issue as well. I mean, my wife runs a small business out of the home. The pandemic, our kids was easy. We had a nice spot. It wasn't a big deal for others who had to work every day. It was absolute horror. So, I mean, I think, there's probably an age divide somewhere there. It's certainly much more palatable and maybe a little more effective at the higher education level than it is at the elementary school level. There's probably versions of hybrid and tech experiences that include distance learning that can be worked into a K-12 curriculum that enhances access to materials or concepts or to online experiences. It's probably not, I haven't seen, and we've looked, a model at the K through 6th grade level, fully online with very little additional supervision that works effectively from a learning outcome standpoint. So, maybe somebody will figure it out, but I don't think it's figured out yet.
Can I say one more thing?
Please.
If anybody wants to substitute, there is nothing more fulfilling and it'll wear you out like nothing.
Yes.
Especially for me lately. I was in the Army for 22 years. You do all the platoon sergeant and squad leader and all that, but a classroom of second graders will wear you out.
Amen.
For 8 hours.
That's true. I'm with you.
I haven't been that tired in a very long time.
Yeah. When you look at your next elementary school teacher you run up against, you meet them at a dinner party, think of them as athletes because they have stamina, man. That takes a tremendous amount of energy, both physically and emotionally. Thanks, you guys. Thank you.
Don't go too far. Please don't go too far. So, really appreciate you sharing with us that experience you've gone to go through, your leadership philosophy. My biggest takeaways is the need for that strategic vision to be set and communicated. And then the things that you said that I know a lot of folks in this room do, but we seldom really talk about is taking ownership of the problem. Not saying, hey, everybody else messed it up, so let's try and fix it. No, it's my problem now. I own it. I have full responsibility for its failure, regardless of whether I've been here a day or a year. And so that, to me, that was very powerful. I wrote that down. I just want to say thank you. So you asked for us to share a little bit about White Sands. I'm going to try and do that for you. I'm not as eloquent as my boss, but on behalf of General Little, I'd like to share with you one of our command corners and share a little bit of the White Sands Missile Range history within it, and then really the future of where we're trying to take this organization. So every military organization, at most at the command level, will have a coin of excellence that they recognize their service members, civilians, employees with that coin. So this is our coin of excellence. So in the middle of the coin, you see a rocket. That's the V2 rocket, which was reverse engineered here on White Sands Missile Range. After World War II, Colonel von Braun was brought over to the U.S. Along with a lot of the scientists. They reverse engineered the very first ballistic missile to be built and utilized. So there's a lot first here on White Sands Missile Range. So in the corner, you're going to see 1954 and 1958. In 1954, we were White Sands Proving Ground. 1958, we became White Sands Missile Range. In 1954, obviously is what put White Sands on the map was the atomic bomb. So we have Trinity Site. If you haven't had the privilege of opportunity to get out Trinity Site, we actually just did this past Saturday with a team. The next one will be in March, April, right? So 2 opportunities a year for folks. Highly encourage you and your team to come and visit, and we can work with you with that. But that's what put White Sands on the map. Another first year on White Sands Missile Range is the very first ballistic missile leaving the atmosphere of the Earth and imaging the curvature of the Earth. That happened here on White Sands Missile Range. That occurred in 1946. So a lot of the history here on White Sands Missile Range and who we are, who we've been, and how we support our national defense. We're really focusing on multi-domain operations. We're shifting and changing the culture of the organization to be prepared for multi-domain operations against our near-peer threats. And that's, you see a Pentagon there with all 5 domains: land, sea, air, cyber, space. And then you'll see the General Little Star there. Mr. Rob Storm, our executive director, his SES symbol, the Salvation Rank. So But on behalf of Joe Little, White Sands Missile Range, and the team, thank you so much for taking the time. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Yes, sir.